We have a number of people who are new to joining us. So I want to say thank you for joining us this evening. And the program that I'm going to be presenting has 94 slides. I just kept adding and adding and adding some slides. And I have quite a number of genealogy forms that I cannot show in this program because we would be here for a good 2.5 hours. However, if you want any of them, they are free in our New Lenox genealogy vertical file. I have copies of everything, and you can help yourself to any of the copies that are in there. I just ask that you leave the master copy in there, so in case I need to make more, I have one that I could use. And if you have never seen the genealogy vertical file, I remember I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights, and every other Saturday. I am very happy, very, very happy to help you navigate those cabinets. Okay. As many of you know, this is always a recorded program, and we record it to the cloud, and then one of our managers edits it a little bit, and then she'll put it on our YouTube channel for 30 days or so. So if you miss something or you can't watch all of it and you are interested, just go to the New Lenox Public Library YouTube channel. Okay, so with that, I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to start. Normally, I ask that you mute your microphone. However, if you have any questions during the program, just go ahead and ask them to me, and I will try my very best to answer right then and there. Okay. Also, if you wouldn't mind taking, when I sent you the link to this program, I also sent you a code that if you wouldn't mind taking a short survey afterwards, I would appreciate it as well. All righty. Let's just see. Okay, so here we go. So tonight's program is genealogy charts and forms. Who needs them? As we all know, I just love that little picture. Genealogy, our work is never, ever done. Never, ever done. When people tell me that that they've got everything they need, I always kind of chuckle because I think, boy, I've been doing this for almost 30 years and I'm never almost done. But whatever, whatever. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, good, 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 good. So just a little summary. What's it all about? Why use genealogy charts and forms? We're going to talk about the do's and don'ts when using charts and forms. And I have a number of examples of charts and forms that I've used. There's all kinds of organization tools that you can use regarding your genealogy. Peg, who's joining us this evening, did a program on using organizing tools, and she uses spiral notebooks, and I have used those. I have quite a number of those spiral notebooks as well, and I find those very helpful. But there's all kinds of tools, so you just have to find the ones that you're going to use and that are beneficial for your research. So genealogy forms help us keep track of the research that we already know. It reduces duplication. I'm sure if you are anything like me, you have gone on a census and you'll say, oh, I don't know if I have a copy of that census record. So you make a copy of it only to go back, look at your research, and voila, you already have a copy of it. Whether it's a census record or a birth, marriage, or death record, all kinds of forms that we use and all kinds of research that you may have already duplicated. So using some forms, using a binder, whatever works for you, it makes your research work more effective if you're not always using your time duplicating what you already know. And these forms also identify missing information, and it keeps your research far more organized, far more organized. So here's some do's and don'ts when using the charts. And these are just suggestions. I'm not saying that I use everything listed here. I use some of it, and you'll see when you see some of the examples of the forms that I use, I have my own shorthand and my little notes. I put smiley faces, I put sad faces. So whatever works for you, use that. But these are just some suggestions. Use a full name. They're the ancestor's first name, middle name, and last name. That's really important, especially when I show you an example of some census records. Do not abbreviate names, dates, and places, because you might put in a date like 9/21 when it should be 9/21/18 something or 19 something. For women, if you know their maiden name, please use it, not her married name. Surname should be listed in caps, the last name first. Here's an example, my great-great-grandfather, Hannaway Jacob. And here's an example, use the date is the date, the month, and the year. And for a place name, Chicago, try to include the county, Illinois, and if possible, the country, because there could be a Chicago over in Europe. There could be a Chicago Cook, a territory over in Europe. We don't know. We haven't discovered all those countries and all those cities and counties. So I would definitely try to include the country that you're researching as well. A research log. Okay, here's where I'm going to start demonstrating some of the forms. A research log documents the research that we already know and the records that we already have. And so then this will give you an idea of what you want to acquire to fill in your missing information. Here's an example by Ancestry.com. All of these forms that I'm demonstrating this evening that are included in this program are free online. I've used Ancestry.com. I've used FamilySearch.org. I've used National Archives. I've used Family Tree Magazine. There's lots and lots of genealogy websites that will offer these charts and forms for free. Just find the one that you're comfortable using, because as you'll see, there's different formats for many of these forms. And here's one. This is a research calendar. Give you the date, the repository, the source, time period, the name searched, and your results. Okay, pretty self-explanatory. Here's a different example. Very similar, but just still a little bit different. So you just want to keep those in mind, whichever one would be the easiest for you to use. And there can be differences that you may prefer one over the other. Here's an example of one that I've used for my Wyzoric family. And you'll see scribbles. You'll see here up here, I have the date 10/19, and you'll say, 10/19. Well, I happen to know that was 10/19/20, but I didn't put 20. I wrote down the film number. And again, I didn't list the source here, but this is a family search website that I was on, and I can tell because of the film number. This here, these three document numbers are film numbers. There's a film number, and there's a film number. And then this is the information. I've searched baptisms and marriages. I researched slides 71 to 309. I was looking for Antonina Polis and discovered she is not listed on that film number. And then I went looking for Antonina again from about 1843. This was a little bit before, again, no luck. Agnes Wyzorek, wife of possibly Antonius. Again, these are all things that I want to continue to research. You'll see a little tiny smiley face here. I was so tickled when I found this marriage record of Martin and Regina Gorski. Regina is my 5th great grandmother, and folklore told me that her husband's name was Jan, Jan, but in Polish it's John, or in English it's John. But yet I found the marriage record that clearly indicates that his name was Martin. And this is the image number on this film number right here. No, pardon me. They were the 42nd marriage listed in 1845 on this film number. And this is where I found that marriage on page 356 out of 883 pages. So that was why I gave myself a smiley face. And here's another one of Taman and Josepha Wyzorek. I was just trying to determine, are they related to me or not? And so that's why there's lots of question marks. And so this is just one log, or pardon me, one document that I use. I have lots and lots of documents that I use, and I keep like the whole surname together when I'm doing a lot of research before I add it to my family tree software. I want, like in this case here, this is something I would add, because not only do I have the film number, the page number, but I also have a copy of the document that I took a picture of. So here's an example that when I'm helping a patron, I use this document a lot, just so that I can get a pretty good, clear idea of what information we're trying to find. And it's just the husband's name, his occupation, BMD, birth, marriage, and death, his wife's name, her maiden name, and any of their children. I try to put them in chronological order. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And this is one page, because you'll notice there's only 12 children that could be listed, and many of our ancestors had more than 12 children, especially with the infant death rate during those ancestor times. Here's another example that you can use. It's a little bit cleaner. It gives you a little bit different information. This is from the National Archives. And this would be the second page to that one, listing all their children. They have 15 slots there. And here they indicate the name of their spouse if the person got married, the date and cause of their death, place that they were buried too. Here's a family group record from another resource. I've used this one a lot. This one, I believe I might have some examples of this one. This is from familysearch.org. However, what I like about this one is that it's a little bit larger, so you can get a little bit more information in there. And on the second page, which, oh, let me go back. This one only goes up to 3, but you can keep adding children to it because there's more pages. And here's an example of one that I've used for the Wyzorek family again. And you'll see that I have the husband's name up here. I have Antonina Paulus right there. I know that they got married on July 5th, 1863 in Poland. They were the 23rd marriage listed in 1863 on that film number.
What's a film number?
What's a film number? Oh, what a great question. When I was searching Family Search, I document the film number that I found this information on. Just so that if I ever want to go back, I say, oh my God, what film number was I looking at? And if I document it, then I can just add that. I can search by that film number instead of searching by the country or the city or the parish. And that is what it is. The film number is the microfilm that I found this on. But in this case, this microfilm was actually digitized because I was searching online. I found so much great information these past 5 or 6 months on Family Search in Europe, and especially in Poland and Germany. And so here you'll see that Antonina was born on 6/9/1843. She's baptized on 6/11. Again, little tiny, there's the film number. And these are some of the children that they had. Josephus, Stanislava, Mariana. Oh, let me go back. Those are just some of the children. I want to say that they had 10 children. I apparently didn't add all of them, but those are part of them that I did add. One of my favorite forms is this one. I'm not sure where I got this form, but I worked with some wonderful people who know how to enlarge documents for me. And this is a 9-generation family tree circle chart. And I do have this available at the New Lenox Library. You'll see I was pretty successful when I was writing this. Here I am. These are my parents. So this is the first generation, pardon me. Then here's my grandparents. So you know you have 4 grandparents. And then here's my great grandparents. Okay. This one, my great grandparents. And you'll see that I was successful in having all of these names, finding this information. However, when I got to the next generation, I know Catherine Summer, my German ancestors, I could keep going back. Some of them, I went back to 9 generations. Charles Ball, for anyone who's ever heard me talk, he is my brick wall for like 25 years. I can't find his parents. I'm stuck. Here's my German ancestors, Philip Hirschberg. I was able to find a little bit. Here's the Wyzoriks, my German Sawickis, my Zykowskis, my Wozniaks, and here are my English and French. Pardon me?
Oh, it's interesting the name Zokowski came up there. My wife's maiden name is Zokowski.
Oh, you never know.
We might be related.
We might be related, and it wouldn't be the first time that I was having a program where I found I was related to someone who was participating. It happened many, many years ago when I was presenting a program at Governor State. So here's my French Canadian. I was pretty successful going back 8 generations, but then I kind of got stuck on some of my 9th generation. And then here's my my Hanaways that I've been searching. This is the biggest surname I've been searching the longest, and I've been very successful, even crossing the pond a little bit, getting some of these. They came over in the 1600s. Some of the Hanaways came over, the Bunnells and the Yarnells. The Yarnells were very big in shipping. So this is one of my absolute favorite charts. I have like a 3-generation up on my walls of different surnames, but I would love to get this in a really big format and then put it in a frame. Although I want to make it pretty. It's simple here, but I'd like to have it real pretty. So this is one of my favorite forms though, by far, because it really gives me an indication of the information that I'm missing. You know, like look at Charles Ball. I have nothing. Look at some of these people over here. My Joseph and Marianne, of course, Joseph and Marianne, they got married in 1884 in Poland. I was able to find from their Russian marriage certificate their parents' names, but Joseph's parents were deceased by the time that they got married, and the Jankowskis and Zilkowskis, I was able to get a little bit more research and find a little bit more on their ancestry. So by far, that's one of my favorite documents. And here, because many of you know that I've adopted my children. All of my children are adopted. So I definitely do an adopted family tree ancestor chart. And I just took one of my children, Jamie. Here's Jamie. When she was born, her baptismal name is Jamie Lynn Lindsay. I should have put AKA, but I put now when I wrote this. Her name is Jamie Danielle Taylor. She was born in Chicago. Obviously, you don't change where they were born. And here's my information. It was a single parent adoption, so therefore I don't need any of this stuff. My name, where I was born, I'm not dead yet, so I'm not filling that in. Here's my mother's information and my father's information. And then here's her birth parents' information. Her birth father, Jerry Dale Lawrence. You'll notice, and her birth mother's name is Kathleen A. Lindsay. You'll notice that Jamie's birth certificate said Lindsay. It's spelled a little tiny bit different, but not her father. Her mother and father were never married, and their first two children, Kathleen had the girls with her name. When Jerry and Kathleen had a son, he was given the father's name. So for whatever reason. And then here's Jerry's parents' names. I haven't been able to find his birth mother's maiden name yet, but I keep looking that up for the kids. And then here's Kathleen's parents' names. And interesting, when I was doing a presentation at the Park Forest Historical Society a number of years ago, I had a chart with the kids' information because we were talking about, it was an adoption program. I was talking about the kids and their families and stuff. And I was in touch with one of the audience members, came up to me afterwards and said that she knew Marilyn Mayo. And because she attended that program, we changed this other person, her name is Lynn. We exchanged phone numbers, and we have breakfast at least once a year with my daughters because they are related. They are related, which is kind of cool. That if she hadn't attended that program and I hadn't been speaking, we may never have made that connection. So you never know. You never know. It was pretty cool. A census. There are many, many, many census genealogy forms. Many. Let me see if I can move this. Maybe. So follow your ancestor by surname from 1790, by their last name. And keep in mind that only the head of the household was listed by the last name, and generally it was the male. You won't find children's names listed. You'll have hashtags by age groups and sex. You can document their movement from one home to another and from one geographic area to another. And of course, keep in mind street and address changes. And notate that the U.S. federal census information provides city, county, state information, as well as ward information. Well, I better pull this up. Ward, district number, and page number. And that's important if you want to document it, if you ever want to look back at it again. Here's an example of a checklist for the 1790 to the 1940 census. And you'll notice there is no 1890 because there was a fire, one or two fires, and many of the documents for the 1890 census were damaged due to water and fire. Some of the states are creating tax records that you can perhaps search for your ancestor, but not very many census records for 1890 are available. So here's one example of my great-grandfather, Ludwig Sawicki, and he goes by Ludwig, and Lewis. And so he immigrated in the 1800s. He and his wife, Stanislava Stella, were married in 1886 here in Chicago. And I have them on because there's no 1890 census. I do know where they lived, but it's not a census. So on the 1900 census, they're listed in Chicago, Ward 33, District 1050, on page 4 of 51. That's how I did it. So I would be very specific. 1889 is when they got married, sorry. I do it this way so I know exactly what page they are listed on. And then on the 1910 census, he's listed as Ludwig Senica. Again, I put Chicago Ward 8, District 0462. He's listed on page 16 out of 32. On the 1920 census, he's listed as Louis Sawicki. Again, Chicago Ward 8, District 0513. Let me just comment here. He never moved. He never moved at all. He built his home. That home is still standing to this day. Just things, the addresses and the wards and things changed. So he was on page 2 of 34. And then the last census that he's on was the 1930 census. He's listed again as Louis Sawicki, Chicago Ward 7, District 2434. He's listed on page 38 out of 53. So that's just how I did it. And then, of course, I just wrote that he immigrated in 1885 and he was deceased in 1937. I have the property records to this home, which was fascinating because I got to see how the family, this home stayed in the family until the 1960s. Pretty cool. So here's an example of trying to be flexible with when you're searching for names. This is my great-grandfather, Marion Albert Hanaway. He was born in 1879, so he's listed on the 1880 census as Marion A. Hanaway. There's no 1890 census, so we go to the 1900 census, and I found him listed as Bert Hanaway. Okay, different spelling. This is the correct spelling. This is not the correct spelling. I found him on the 1910 census as Albert M. Hanaway, OMG. And then the 1920 census, he's listed as Bert Hanaway, misspelling. 1930, he's listed correctly, Bert Hanaway. And the 1940 census, he's listed Bert Hanaway. And I also indicated Indiana, Porter County, Boone, and the page, the district. So you have to be flexible when you're searching for your ancestors and their names. Don't be real stringent, be flexible and look for variants on the names. His legal name was Marion A. Hanaway, but he went by Bert and he went by Albert sometimes for whatever reason. Non-population schedules and special censuses, many of the states used these if they had something special that they wanted information on. Federal, state, and local governments use these censuses. The ones that are particularly interesting are the 1850, 60, 70, 80, and 1885 mortality schedules and other schedules. But the mortality schedules are especially interesting because if someone died 12 months immediately preceding the enumeration, that's where you would find their death. Because many cities, states, and counties did not issue death records. You know, they weren't mandated and they just didn't document them. So I'm going to give you some examples of these schedules and the information you can get on them. Here's the 1850 and 1860 mortality schedule. There's 11 questions, you know, the name of the person who died, the age, sex, color, were they free or a slave, married or widow, place of birth, the month in which the person died, their job, a disease if they knew it, and the number of days ill. So here's an example. This is one of my relatives, Hannah Ann Yarnell. She was 5 years old. She was born in Pennsylvania, and the month that she died in was June. She died of scarlet fever. The number of days that she was ill was 1, and she died in 1849 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, they didn't issue a death certificate, so the only way I found this was on this mortality census. Here's the 1880, very similar, but now they're asking for more information, like the name of the physician. If the disease wasn't contracted at the place of death, then where? One of my favorite ones are the agricultural census schedules, because you can find lots and lots of great information on your ancestor if they were a farmer. Some of my relatives were definitely farmers. And here's more of the information. Let me just go back. Here it says like the number of horses that they had, mules, cows, cattle, sheep, swine, if they had grain, spring wheat, winter wheat. So these are all the questions that they asked. So if your relatives was a farmer, you could find out, did they have a lot of property? Did they have a small acreage? What did they grow? Just think of all the information that you could put in your family history if you had this information. And of course, I was lucky. Benjamin Bowser is one of my great-great-grandparents, and I found him on the 1870 agricultural census in Ohio. And look at all the information that it provided at 100 acres of improved land, and then an additional 180 acres of wooded land. In 1870, this was valued at $14,000. That's a lot of money at that time. Oops. Sorry.
Pam,
Yes.
Pam, you know, one of the things I found when I was doing some research for Oak Lawn, Worth Township, is that sometimes people were not found on the regular population schedule, but were
Right.
found in the agricultural census.
Absolutely.
So, both.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kathy. That is so true. So true. Right. Excuse me, I just want to shut a door. Stay here, Lucy. Stay here. Stay here. Lucy, come here. Good girl. Good girl. Just like children, dogs don't always want to be quiet. Okay, so interesting. He had 7 horses, 7 milk cows. Let me just say the Bowser family, it was a large family. I want to say he had 10 or 12 children. So 7 milk cows, he needed those. 41 sheep. His value of his livestock was $844. Let me just see if I can move this. Oh yeah, this down here just tells you the value of some of the bushels that they had. 1,200 bushels of corn, 200 bushels of winter wheat. Really great information that you would never have gotten from a federal census. You needed this agricultural census to find out this information. So
what do you search for as keywords on this? Do you go by state, county, and township, or do you go by the person's name?
I went, when I was doing Benjamin, when I was looking for Benjamin, I suspected that, well, I suspect a lot of my family are farmers. I know a lot of my family were farmers. Just like you may know, a lot of your family may be from the railroad or the steel mills. So that's why I looked at the agricultural census. I suspected that they were in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Indiana, and that's how I found Benjamin. I was searching I searched a lot of different ways, but I did search Benjamin Bowser. But I was searching specifically on the 1870 agricultural census on ancestry.com. Okay. So here's the 1880 industrial and manufacturer census schedules. Just an example. Look, they have 29 questions, 29 questions for people to answer. This is from the National Archives. Another great one is the 1890 veteran schedule for those, especially in the Civil War, Just another form that you can use. I'm going to give you a lot of, well, not a lot, I'm going to give you some examples of the supplemental schedule for defective, dependent, and delinquent classes. And this one here is for insane inhabitants. And here's the questions. There's 18 questions, you know, from the name of the person to where they're living. Has this person ever been an inmate of any hospital or asylum for the insane? If yes, name the said hospital or asylum. I don't know if any of you remember when I did my program on poorhouses. This is a document that would be very useful. If that poorhouse had any kind of records, then you would be able to use this form. So here's an example of Hannah Riley. This is not a relative of mine. It was just that one that I found for a different patron. Hannah Riley, she was 50 years old, pardon me, in Knox County, Ohio. She had her form of disease. Look at that. Change of life. Give me a break. A change of life. But this is in the 1880s, okay? Never institutionalized before. She was a paying patient. She had previously been hospitalized at a lunatic hospital for 18 months. Oh my goodness. The things that you find out. Idiots. I hate this term, but this is what was used in the 1880s. And this is a document, again, 18 questions for someone who is classified as an idiot. Deaf mutes, another form. There's lots of these forms. 16 questions. Blind, if someone was blind, their name, where they resided, form of blindness, supposed cause of blindness if it's known. Has this person ever been an inmate of an institution for the blind? If yes, look at how they spelled that. Give the name of such institution. And here, Verde Crutchfield lived in Howard Township of Knox County, Ohio. He's simply listed as blind. Homeless children, very, very sad. Especially in the 1930 and 1940 census records, sometimes homeless children are found in orphanages, and you might not find it under the name orphanage. You might find it under like home for the friendless, where one of my relatives was on the 1940 census. She was about 11. Her mother put her and her sister and her brother in a home between marriages. Perhaps she couldn't afford to keep them at home, so she put them in essentially in an orphanage, but it was called the Home for the Friendless. And I just thought that's so sad. So what a name. But I was able to find it in the Chicago census. Here's 20 questions. The last one, is he or she an idiot? And here's an example. Oops, let me move this. Samuel Lauterbach, he's a little boy. He's only 6 years old. Both his parents are deceased. He was not illegitimate, nor was he born in an institution. He's simply separated from his mother, obviously, if both his parents are deceased. Samuel was never arrested or convicted of a crime, nor has he been rescued from criminal surroundings, and his current residence is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So he's listed on this record as a homeless child. Who knows? Maybe he was then sent on one of the orphan trains out to move out west, or maybe he was adopted by a family. Although I would be surprised if a family hadn't stepped forward so that he wasn't put in this homeless shelter. People who are imprisoned, their name, city, place of imprisonment. 23 questions. Alleged offense. Wait till you see this one. This is for, oops, Edward Allen, he was in prison for petty larceny. He was fined $7.50. This is 1880. He was in prison since January 10th, 1880. So far, he served 182 days for petty larceny, and he was fined $7.50. He had to pay that back. $7.50. It took him a long time to pay that money back. Prison records are available on by some state records. They can be difficult to find, but you might be able to find some, especially in Illinois. The prison down in Alton, they have records. Joliet has some records too. Pauper and indigent individuals. 28 questions. Again, is he or she an idiot? So those are just some of the forms for census records, and there's so many more that I have available. And like, especially the 1790 through the 1840 census, some of the forms that I have will tell you what they were looking for at that time on those census. And they, of course, have those same documents available for 1850 through 1940. And I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, filled out the census records that was available, that people sent out, the federal government sent out for 2020. Hopefully you made a copy of it for your family so that they don't have to wait 72 years to see that information. So moving on, a to-do list for your relatives, your ancestors. So document the records that you need, especially the vital records, those church, marriage, and death records. If you're trying to find a missing spouse, a child, a parent, check your census records. These are all things you want to document. Review microfilm at a family history center that might not be available online. Some of the film that I'm looking for to search for my relatives is not available online. It's not available at an affiliate library such as New Lenox. So I have to actually go to a family history center such as the one in Wilmette, Illinois, and see if I can access that film there. Visit a local history genealogical center for information on your ancestry. I was very, very successful when I wrote to White County, Indiana, maybe 25 years ago, searching for information on Jacob Hanaway, only to discover that the director of the historical center is actually a cousin of mine. She's like a second cousin, 3 times removed or something, but she's from the Bowser line, and that's one of my surnames, one of my great-great-grandparents. Read journal articles, search online historical resources for information on your ancestor. So don't just rely on the internet. If you rely on the internet, you're only going to find so much. You really have to get in and do the other work, the dirty work, getting in, go to those research libraries, request those documents, look at newspapers, although there are newspaper websites also, which are pretty nice. So here's just a form, another form to do, simple. To-do list for my ancestor, the date and what you want to do. And so here's one that I wrote that only applies for information that I'm looking at a family history center. So I can't find this information anywhere else. These are for my Polish ancestors, the Wozniak family. I know for a fact that this particular film up here, 764045, BMD means birth, marriage, and death. And this record, this film number is not available online. I can only get it at a family history center. So these are all people that I'm looking for only at a family history center, or if I'm ever lucky enough to go out to Salt Lake City and search them. And we'll see what I find. This is one of my favorite websites for any relatives in Illinois, is obviously from CyberDrive. If you've never used it, I would highly recommend it. It's free. They have lots and lots of information, not just marriage indexes, but lots of information that they work alongside with the Illinois State Genealogical Society to put together these indexes for records that they have. It's all free. CyberDrive, it's cyberdriveillinois.org. And here's one of the examples of a statewide marriage index. And you just fill in the name. This is from Family Tree. Okay, so you would just put the groom's name, the bride's name, the date, the county, and the reference where they were married. This is all not a record, just an index, just an index. And here's another form, pretty similar, same thing, just there could be lots and lots of forms that are very similar. You just find the one that you're most comfortable using. And here's an example of information that I accessed from the Zelkowski family on CyberDrive. I give you all the groom's names right here, and then the bride's names right here, the date that they got the marriage license, the county, and then the reference number. This is the license number here. Okay. You'll see that this Lucas one spelling, Lucas a different spelling, but everything's the same. Now, sometimes you're lucky and you can find this information, and then you can just, well, I know you can access this on familysearch.org now. All these documents are available. They've digitized them. Or you could request them from Cook County Genealogy, although I personally would not recommend it because it's $16 or more. If you ever need help, let me know and I can help you try to get those records free. So here's my Sawicki. There's Ludwig, there's my great-grandfather, and I know he married Stanislava Wyzorek, but there's something wrong here. That is not how you spell Stanislava's last name, but that is exactly how it was indexed, Wiezcossek. That is the date that they got married, 1889, May 28th, and that is their marriage license. However, if I went to look up Stanislava Wyzorek, okay, well, first I did Ludwig, and there they are again, Wiezcossek. That is completely transcribed wrong. But this is the date that they got married. But if I was looking for Stanislava, I would not have found her. Look at, when I spelled her maiden name the way that they have it transcribed, no records were found. But I happen to know I did find it the correct way because I went to the actual church on CyberDrive or on familysearch.org and I found it that way. But again, be flexible. Ludwig was there, Stanislava was not. Military service. These forms are helpful in simply describing your ancestors' draft information and possibly military service information. And here's an example of just a checklist of military records. You'll see colonial wars, the War of 1812, the Indian War, the Mexican War, service 1866 forward, the Philippine insurrection 1899 to 1902, World War I, World War II. That's pretty much where they go up to on this form, And here's some examples. Here's an example of my great-grandfather again, Marion Albert. This is a World War I. And he simply, he's listed his age as 39. This is the correct birth date. You'd be surprised how many times information is incorrect. He did live in Thayer, DeMott, Indiana. This is my great-grandmother, Eva Bell. He was a farmer. And this is a description. He's medium height. He's stout. He has blue eyes and light color hair. And he was native born. And so this is an example. There's a number of World War I draft registrations. And the primary difference is the date. You'll notice this is June 5th, 1917. This is July 5th, 1918. And then this is September 12th, 1918, all World War I. And then here's World War II, a draft card for the fourth registration. Here's another example of my great-grandfather for World War II. Now he lists himself as Bert Albert Hanaway. Not sure he could get his name right. He lives 3 miles south of Hebron in Porter County, Indiana. He's 63. Again, he's got the right birth date on there. Who would always know his address, and he is a farmer. He's 5 feet 7 inches and he weighs approximately 190 pounds. Now his hair is gray and he has a light complexion, and he has no other outstanding characteristics, bodily characteristics. Here's my grandfather, Stephen Sylvester Wozniak. His registration for World War II. It has his address at the time. He lived at 10551 Spalding in Mount Greenwood. This is his daughter, Mrs. John Madrusky. She lived at 8528 Colfax Avenue. My grandfather was born on December 24th, 1902. What this doesn't say is that my grandfather already served in World War I. I've been unable to find his enlistment records at this time, but I know he served in World War I. He was in the Marine Corps because I have his number, his military number, and on his grave is the Marine Corps emblem, which you can only get if you can prove that you were in the military. My grandfather his race was white. He was 5'6". He was a small man, 138 pounds, blue eyes, blonde hair, and he had a ruddy complexion. But interesting, he had a tattoo of a bluebird on his right arm. And I didn't know that. So that was kind of cool that I found out that my grandfather had he had a tattoo. He was a heavy smoker. Unfortunately, he died in 1859. He was quite young when he died. He was 57. He had emphysema, but he was a very heavy smoker.
Pam, he was pretty young to be in World War I if he was only born in 1902.
You're
He
right.
had to be 16 years old or younger.
Yeah, but he lied.
Okay.
He lied on his enlistment papers.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. He could be 16, but he didn't exactly tell the truth. And when I was searching for Stephen Sylvester Wozniak years ago, I was shocked to find how many Stephen Sylvester Wozniaks served in World War I. I mean, it's hundreds. It's not just a couple. It's lots of them. Unbelievable. But luckily, St. Casimir eventually had those military, when you fill out to get a military headstone, you have to list their military ID number. And those that form was eventually digitized and put online. And so after waiting, because St. Casimir told me when I went there that, they're stored off-site. We can't get to them. You can't go over there and look. You just have to wait and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, eventually they were digitized on Ancestry.com. And so I had access to them. So there you go. The passenger search list. First of all, keep in mind that if your immigrants are crossing the pond, sometimes those records are difficult to read. So you may want to make a copy of the document that indicates their name, and also the first page of the manifest, so that you have all that information. That's very, very important. So these are just forms. These are some forms. I have a lot of other ones that are just as useful as the ones I'm going to show you. They're designed for transcribing the names and the information, where they may have entered the country, the ship name, blah, blah, blah. So here it is, custom list of passengers. Notice 1882 to March 1903. And this is just another form. a passenger list search worksheet. When you're searching passenger list, I would, if you think that multiple relatives came over at the same time, go back and forth on pages because you may find them on different pages. I was very fortunate that Joseph, my great-grandfather Joseph, came over with a cousin, Jacob, and his brother-in-law and his brother-in-law and two of his brother-in-laws. So I was very fortunate that they were all listed together. Here's an immigration passenger list for 1907 to 1913. And here's just some of the questions that they asked: family name, given name, age, years and months, sex, marriage, occupation, nationality, and then it goes on. The race, the last permanent resident. If you can find that information out, that is so valuable to find out where they used to reside. Whether it's in Germany or Poland. Again, keep in mind boundary changes over in Europe. What was Germany may now be Poland. What is now Poland may have been Russia. You just never know. And where they were planning on going at that time when they landed in Baltimore or Philadelphia. Where were they intending on going? Were they planning on going to Chicago? Were they planning on going to California? Maybe that's listed. This is one of the most requested charts that people ask me for, how to determine relationships from second cousins, 3 times removed, to fifth cousins. I love it when people tell me, oh my gosh, I just love it when people say, it was my mother's grandmother. And I'm thinking, well, if it was your mother's grandmother, that would make that person your great grandmother. But so many times when people refer to their relatives, they'll say, what was my mother's cousin? Or is my father's cousin? It was my grandmother's sister. Well, that's your aunt. Those are still your relatives. I just get a big kick out of it. So this is a very popular form that I'm going to show you here. And here it is. A parent, siblings, okay. Grandparent would be nephew or niece, a grandnephew. This is just one. I have another one that I love a little bit better, but it does tell you the relationship of your relatives, whether you're a first cousin once removed or a first cousin 3 times removed, how you connect. A source document guide, we pretty much talked about this. Whenever you're searching for something and you find information, document it. Document it so that when you're entering it in your genealogy software or your binder, whatever it is, because you may forget. Your relatives who are taking your research when you're gone, they'll say, I wonder where she got that, or I wonder where he got that information. If you document where you got it from, they'll know where to go. And here's just some of them. Was it a Bible source? Was it a census record, a church record, cemetery marker, land record? Property records are wonderful. Obituary. And again, keep in mind, an obituary may not be accurate. It only depends on the person who gave the information. Same with vital records as well. An online search tracker. Use this form to track searches in Ancestry or another genealogy database. You'll avoid repeating searches if you use one of these trackers. And here it's real simple. The collection name, the website, document the website. So many times I've looked at the same reel of film at Family Search, and I'll say, but I didn't look at that page, because I try to document what pages I've searched so that I'm not going over it again and again. And when I'm looking at those pages, I try to look at not only the name I'm looking for and the parents' names, but possibly, if they're religious records, grandparents' names and godparents' names, or maybe whoever was the informant for a death record. All very important. And here's I'm just going to go through these last part, pretty simple, pretty fast. An oral history interview record. I remember when I was taking, asking my great aunt B some information about her youth. You know, did she get an allowance? What was her favorite food? You know, did her mom make her clothes? Blah, blah, blah. I wrote it in a little tiny spiral notebook. Because I didn't have a tape recorder, I didn't have anything available, so I was just writing notes. And this would be a wonderful document to have so that you can take that record and then put it in your research or transcribe it, but definitely add it to your research. A city directory, resource, worksheet. I have one for the Sawikis. It's great because it did give me the different addresses that were changed, the different dates, I mean, the different years that the addresses changed, but it also showed me where he was constantly living. Property records, here's a deed index for grantors who are the property sellers. And then I also have one for the buyers. I have the property records for the Sawicki household, and it's pages long because, like I said, the home was built in 1889, and I have property records. Well, I guess I requested them maybe 8 years ago, and it went up to that time. But the family, it stayed in the family until the 1960s, which was really interesting to have. Heirloom inventory. How many of us have inherited items from our grandparents, from our parents? I have my great-grandmother's an Afghan that she made. I have several dishes, and I have a sewing machine that was a pedal, and my mother converted it to electric, and my sister had it made into a working lamp for me 2 years ago, and the sewing machine would still work too, even though it's converted to a lamp, if I had all the foo-foo. So it could be jewelry, it could be a wedding dress, but that's pretty interesting to document heirlooms that we've inherited. One of my favorite things that I'm going to do is a time capsule on COVID. I'm going to do a time capsule for my family on COVID. I'm going to have almost every single mask I made, my vaccination chart that indicates that I was vaccinated with Moderna, and some of my journal entries of what I did during COVID and what most likely I didn't do. Go to a restaurant, see my family, go to a reunion. I stayed home. I worked on my genealogy. I watched TV. I gained weight. Oh, wonderful. But these are all things that maybe my great-grandchildren, my great-great-grandchildren would be interested in. Think of the pandemic from the early 20th century, the Spanish flu, as they called it. Maybe our relatives put those, documented some of the things that they experienced during those times. Maybe it's not in a time capsule, but maybe it's in a diary or a letter. How valuable that story would be to our research. A family tradition recorder. We all have family traditions, whether it's celebrating holidays or a camping trip or a reunion. Document this. A correspondence. How many times do you write to people saying, okay, how come I didn't hear anything? So you document the date that you sent something, the purpose, the date that somebody replied or didn't reply. And you can obviously use this for an email message as well, or when you've requested a vital record or a copy of a newspaper article or a journal article. A source list. This is just another one. I've already listed 2 different ones, but this one I think is pretty easy. The source name and the citation. Tombstone transcription form. If you can, sometimes you can't read them very clearly, but here is just a form that you can use. Here's some charts, vital records charts for the states, and when birth records and marriage records and death records were all mandated by that particular state or county, state actually, because they're mandated, look in Illinois, birth records 1916. I have birth records from 1886. My great-great-grandmother, marriage records 1962. I can get marriage records from the 1800s from the church, not necessarily from the county, but from the church I can. Death records 1916. You could even get them earlier than that, although prior to 1916, they don't really give you a lot of great information. They give you some, but not a whole lot. One of my favorite charts is the woman's naturalization. You know, did they have to be naturalized or not? Did they get naturalization under their husbands, or was it taken away? So this is just a little chart that gives you like a little timeline. Here's just when I did a cemetery program a number of months ago, I gave a presentation on some of the symbols that are on headstones and tombstones and what they may mean for that particular faith or ethnicity. Sorry about that. Tongue-tied. So these are the resources that I used. I talked about the National Genealogical Society, the National Archives, a Family Tree Magazine, CyberDrive, and Ancestry, and FamilySearch.org. These are all free to use. All these forms that I had shown you tonight are all free to download. They're all free at the library. I've made copies of them. I do have about 25 to 30 additional genealogy forms that I could not put on this program that I do have on a large PDF. If anyone would want a copy of those, and the ones that I have listed here, they are large PDFs though. So I'm going to warn you now, one of them has 40 pages. So if you're interested, just send me an email, and then when I'm at New Lenox the next time, I will send it to you. Send it to you. So does anyone have any questions, comments? No? Let's see.
It gave me a lot of good ideas. I especially like the heirloom one.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah,
That's
the
really good.
heirloom one was kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, my mother has stuff from her grandfather, who would be my great-grandfather. So
Yeah.
I want to maybe take pictures with my camera and then put something on the list too. I like that one a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, Kathy, that's a really good idea. We always have a big Hanaway reunion in July every other year, and you may have heirlooms, but some of your relatives may have some. And if you ask them, you could document it, and maybe you could get a picture of it or actually see the heirloom. You know, when I went to White County Historical Society in Monticello, Indiana, where Betty Bowser, that's kind of a funny name, but Betty Bowser is my distant cousin. I was so excited that she was there the day that I went, that she took me in the back and she showed me Jacob Hanaway's, some of his farm equipment, his will, which I already had a copy of his will, but the original copy was there. It was in a showcase. It was really interesting to see. I was really excited. Really excited.
You know what, I'm looking for an Irish genealogy form, you know, listing all the Irish, like 1901 census, 1911 census. I haven't found one of those yet.
For Ireland?
Yeah.
I would imagine that they have them.
Yeah, I just haven't found it yet.
Yeah, we'll have to do some searching.
Yeah. If anyone else is Irish on this and who knows of a form, let me have Pam know. She would tell me then.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Kathy, this is Peg. I make a lot of my forms myself. You know,
Uh-huh.
because maybe it's my vision, but the forms always seem so tiny. I can't get all the information on them. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
end up making my own forms. And I've done a couple of those with Ireland, but they're not, I'm sure they're not as good as what you would have, but they're more checklist kind of things.
That's what I
Um,
wanted, checklist. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've done it for lots of different places, just primarily because the forms they're too
Mm.
small for me to write the information in. So I end up having to make my own little form on Excel.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. Well,
And
if
for-
anything, if you want to share anything, let me know.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. And
Thanks,
for
Peg.
those of you who don't know who Peg is, Peg lives in Florida, and she used to be president of the Tinley Moraine, Peg?
Yep.
Yep. And she has done a program on not only for Tinley Moraine, but the state conference too, where she demonstrated how she uses spiral binders. Oh my goodness, you should see, Peg, you would be proud of me, my spiral binders on the Hanaway family. I think I have them on the Hanaway, the Wozniak, the Wyzorek, the Summer. I have at least 9 of them. I was just so excited. But oh my goodness, what a job. What a job.
Yes. Yeah.
But very well, now when I go to a center, I can take that binder and some of these blank forms and just add it in there and either document what I've learned or keep searching. Keep searching.
Sorry, I
Oh,
had my
hey,
little
Peg.
thing covered on.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we get to see you. We get to see you.
Yeah.
So does anyone else have any questions or comments?
It's always inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is. Thank you.
Absolutely. And please reach out to me if you want any of these forms. Like I said, I have them at New Lenox in our vertical file, copies that you can have for free. If I'm there, I'll make copies if there's no copies available. If you want a copy of the PDFs, just let me know and I will send them to you, but let me just warn you that they are large PDFs.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
When did you say you were there again?
I work at New Lenox Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights, and every other Saturday. And I am at New Lenox this Saturday. So if you need anything, next month, Thomas McGinty is going to be presenting our genealogy program on Google Drive for genealogists. It is a Zoom program. So I hope that you'll consider registering for it. Yeah.
Great.
No questions, no comments? Okay.
Thank
you
you.
for all the new people who have joined us this evening. I hope you'll consider registering again. And if
Yes.
no one has any questions or comments, I'd appreciate if you take a minute and take that short survey if you can. If not, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. Okay.
Where's the survey, Pam?
It was on, Kathy, it was on the, it's a QR code. It was on the invitation that I sent you earlier.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I got it then. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks,
friend.
Pam.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Peg. Thank you, everyone who joined us. I'm so
Bye.
happy that you came, you participated. I hope you learned something. Okay. Have a wonderful evening and thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.